Hello and welcome to today's lesson on why is erosion a problem. As with the other videos, the idea of this video is that you act just as if you were in school, completing all the tasks as we go, thinking about all the questions and trying to answer them as best you can. So just like every lesson in school, we have a do now task up on the board. There are 5 questions. Each question has got 4 different possible answers. You need to write out the purple sentences and then add the correct answer from the options. So let's do the first one together. Different features that are created at the coast are called. Is it A, landforms, B, headlands, C, spits, or D, longshore drift? The answer to that question is landforms. Well done if you said landforms. So you need to write that purple sentence and then the word landforms. Please don't just write the letter A, because that will mean absolutely nothing when you look back at your work in about an hour's time probably. The suggested time limit for this task is 7 minutes. So when I finish talking, hit pause for about 7 minutes and finish the task. Off you go. Okay, so now that you are ready to go through the rest of the answers, let's go through them. The process where rock or the land is broken down is called erosion. If you got that question wrong, you're going to need to go and have a watch of the video that is in the description here, or look back through your notes, because it's really important to understand erosion for today's lesson. Number 3, the movement of material along the beach is called longshore drift. When there is an arch at the coast, it may form into a stack. After a stack, it may then become a stump, but the next step in the process would be a stack. The types of rock is called geology. Okay, there are a couple of spelling and grammar mistakes on this slide, and you may see them appear later on as well. Each of the sentences should begin with a capital letter, so numbers 2 and 3 need a capital T, and if we look at our title, the word erosion has got a capital E when it doesn't need one. So please change those things now, and change them if you spot any mistakes later in the video as well. So today is all about this question: why is erosion a problem, and what can people do to stop it? We're going to focus more on the first half, trying to explain why erosion is a problem, but we will certainly see a little bit of the second part of the question in our lesson today, in the latest phases of the lesson. So let's get on with today then. So erosion is that process where the sea breaks down material, the beach, the rocks, the sand, the land is broken down by the sea. That process is called erosion. As I mentioned in previous lessons, erosion can be caused not only by the sea, it can be caused by rivers or even by people in some cases. But we're focusing, since we're learning about the coast at the moment, on erosion caused by the sea. So why is erosion a problem? That's the first bit of our lesson. Why is erosion an issue? We're going to address this question now. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to make a mind map or a spider diagram like this. We've got problems caused by erosion in the middle, and then we've got lots of space around it to put our answers. I'm going to show you a series of pictures. I want you to try and write down what problems erosion might cause. Why is it a bad thing? What issues are people or the planet going to have because of erosion? So hit pause now, and when you've finished drawing your diagram, hit play. Okay, so now that you've finished your diagram, if you've not, just hit pause and finish it. Now that you have finished your spider diagram, we're going to look at some pictures and see what problems might be caused by erosion. So in this first picture, we can see the sea has worn away these cliffs and this land. What problems are they going to have because of erosion? Try and add something to your spider diagram now. let's have a look at the next picture. What problems could happen because of erosion here? If you're not sure, have a think about the people who might live in this area or might be in this area. What's going to happen to them if the coast keeps eroding, if the land keeps getting worn away? What problems are the people going to have? Or what problems is the area going to have? What's going to be difficult for people to do if erosion keeps happening? Okay, so looking for the problems caused by erosion, what issues are going to happen because the sea is eroding the coast? Now, some things are really obvious in those pictures and some you would have to have really thought carefully about. Now, I'm going to give you just a minute or two longer in a second just to add anything else you can think of, either from the pictures or just from your own kind of imagination, thinking about what we've learned about erosion and, you know, places like Durdle Door. What problems are they going to have if erosion keeps happening? If you imagine people sitting on the beach in their, you know, deck chairs and stuff, if there's lots and lots of erosion, what problems are there going to be? So just add anything else you can to your mind map or your spider diagram, whatever you want to call it. Last 30 seconds and then we'll be moving on to seeing what answers we've come up with. Okay, so let's go through and have a look at some of these pictures. In each of the pictures I've got one or two suggestions of problems, but you may well have thought of other problems. So if I've not said your idea, it doesn't mean it's wrong. There might be something else as well. Let's start with something quite obvious. People might lose their homes. People live in this area. If their house falls into the sea, where are they going to live? We could look a little bit closer at this picture and see, I think in the sort of top left, there's what looks like a school or something like that to me up around here. I think that's a school maybe. Looks a bit like one in terms of its shape and size. So that being destroyed, if there's no school, the children can't go to school, can't get an education and all that kind of stuff. So lots of possible answers there, but I just started with a really obvious one of people losing their homes. This one, pretty scary with these houses right on the edge. People could die, people could be hurt or injured. That's a serious problem just all by itself. in this picture we can see the transport links are being destroyed, the road has been eroded away, and that is definitely a problem. Again, we've got more transport links being destroyed, but let's think a little bit now. If the transport links are being destroyed, what other problems could that be? Obviously not having transport is bad by itself, but what other problems are there? Well, that means that, say, people can't get to work, or people can't go to see their friends, or they can't go to the shops. So there are lots of problems that happen because the transport links are destroyed. In this picture we've got a hotel that's shut down. Businesses might close because of erosion. This hotel is right on the edge of the coast, and if it erodes away much more, it's going to be in the sea, and so it's not able to stay open as a business. And that obviously means people won't have a job, but it also means there's what we call less tourism. Tourism, you might remember from earlier in the year or last year, is when people go on holiday. Now, lots of coastal towns rely on tourism so that people can earn money. There are lots of hotels and shops and restaurants in coastal areas where people like to go on holiday. Well, if all those shops, restaurants and hotels close, then people won't actually have jobs, and that's going to be a real problem. In some areas, repairs are going to have to be made. They're going to have to spend lots of money fixing houses or fixing the coast, as we can see in this picture. And whilst that doesn't sound like a problem, it can cost lots and lots of money to do. So I'm just going to give you another couple of minutes to add as many ideas as you can to your mind map, thinking about what we've just seen. What I mentioned, the beach with lots of people on it. If suddenly the beach erodes away, well, there's going to be far fewer tourists. Therefore, there's going to be far fewer jobs for people to do. That's another point you could add down. So I'm going to say pause in just 1 second and add as many points as you can. Okay, so you should have a good list of problems that erosion causes, and so we can kind of already answer our key question for the lesson of why is erosion a problem. But before we do that, we can categorize these problems. We can split them into different groups, and we call those social, economic and environmental. It's a bit like I think you do in history when you try and group different causes together. This is definitely something we've talked about in geography before. So have a quick think. What does the word social mean? What does economic mean? And what does environmental mean? Or what do they link to? Just have a think. So social, if something is a social problem, it means it's linked to people, or it's going to affect people. So crime is a social problem because people are affected by it. Economic links to money. So people losing their jobs is a bit of an economic problem because it's linked to money. Environmental links to nature. So climate change is a bit of an environmental problem because it's affecting nature, but it's also a bit of a social problem because it's going to affect people. So when we categorize problems, we have to try and pick the group that's going to be most affected by that problem. And sometimes it will be more than one. Sometimes it can be all three. But we're going to try and split our causes into social, economic and environmental. What I want you to do is I want you to note down the key terms social, economic, environmental. And I want you to create 3 symbols that need to be quite simple, or 3 different colours, because we're going to colour code or put symbols next to our problems that we found. So you could do like S for social, EC for economic, and EN for environmental. Or you could draw a little stick man, a pound sign, or a little tree for each of the 3. It's up to you how you do it, but as long as you've got a really clear way of showing which are social, economic and environmental problems. Let's have a look at my list that I've got. I've got 8 here, and there are definitely more problems. And if you've not got these ones, then you may still have some, well, you probably still have got some really good answers. You don't have to have these ones. But let's go through this list. So people losing their homes, well, if people are being affected, then that's a social problem. Repairs having to be made, that's going to cost lots of money, so that's going to be an economic problem. People can't get to work, well, that means they're not earning money, so that's an economic problem, but people are going to suffer too, so it's a social problem. Less tourism, so less people on holiday, that means it's an economic problem and a social problem because people won't have jobs, so it's affecting people. Transport links being destroyed, that's mostly going to be an economic problem. Businesses shutting down again is mostly going to be an economic problem. But it's going to be a little bit of a social problem too, because people are going to be unable to get to different places, or people aren't going to have jobs. Money having to be spent on building sea defences, on stopping erosion, that's definitely an economic problem, so it costs a huge amount of money. And then finally, people could die. Well, that's a social problem because it's affecting people. So the majority of the effects that I found were economic and some of them were social. Now it looks like actually I've not got any environmental effects, and that seems kind of wrong because probably there should be at least some always. So what environmental effects could there be? You might have thought of some environmental effects. Well done if you did. One that I thought of was salt marshes could be eroded. At the coast, we sometimes find these areas called salt marshes, and they are natural habitats for lots of birds and other animals, and if they're destroyed, then lots of birds and other animals are going to lose their habitats. They're not going to have anywhere to live. Sometimes salt marshes can actually be created by coastal erosion. If the land is worn away, sometimes it naturally turns into something like this. And so that in a way can actually be quite a positive of erosion because it creates a really good natural environment for those birds and other animals to live in. But generally it's a problem. You might have thought of some other environmental issues, like things like sand dunes being destroyed, or if the beach is destroyed, where are all the crabs going to go, that kind of thing. So there are definitely environmental problems, but the social and the economic ones are maybe a bit more obvious to find. We're going to look at how we can develop some of these points into slightly better answers, because just saying, people might lose their jobs, that's absolutely correct, and that is a reason why it's a problem, that's the reason why erosion is a problem, but we can develop our answers a little bit better. So let's start off with this. Transport links are destroyed. That's something we said earlier. Yeah, that's a real good reason why erosion is a problem. But to develop our point, we need to ask ourselves, well, why does this matter? Why is it a problem if there are transport links destroyed? Well, that means people can't get around. This is us starting to develop our points now. Why does that matter? Well, if people can't get around, then that means they can't escape or evacuate if there is actually a big flood or a real problem. And that means they might be more at risk and they're more likely to die or be injured. So we've taken a simple reason like transport links being destroyed and we've developed it twice, and we could do it even more to that final step of saying therefore people are more at risk or they're more likely to die, something like that. So just have a think for 30 seconds in your head. How can you develop the points? How can you develop the reasons that you came up with? Let's go on to the main writing task for today's lesson. I'd like you to answer our key question, why is erosion a problem, as a paragraph. You need to write at least 3 developed reasons. Think about how many times can you develop one point. See if you can do it more than 3 or 4 times. Now you can do your first reason as bullet points. I've put that example up on the board just to help you. Now you're going to find words like so and therefore, or this means that, really helpful to do this task. So transport links are destroyed. This means that people can't get around. So people can't escape or evacuate. Or therefore people can't escape or evacuate. This means that they're more at risk. We could say something like as a result. these are all really good connecting words to link your points together. So I want you to answer that question, why is erosion a problem? And I want at least 3 developed reasons. 3 reasons why it's a problem, but explain them in lots of detail. Remember to be specific, so don't just say it's a problem. What is a problem? Erosion is a problem. Remember to talk like a geographer, so use good words like transport, economic, social, environmental, businesses, employment, jobs. Be really specific and talk like a geographer. And remember, of course, to develop your answers. When I finish talking, I want you to spend about 10 minutes on this task. Once you've finished, hit play. Okay, so now that you've finished your task, let's move on to the last section of today's lesson of suggesting ways to stop erosion. I want you to spend about 2 minutes just thinking really carefully about how you could stop erosion from happening or how you could make those problems less bad. So, pause your video, think for 2 minutes, then hit play. Okay, so let's see some of the ideas that are actually used in real life. We're going to spend all of next lesson looking at different ways of stopping erosion, but I just wanted to give you the chance to think of some of your own ideas and see if they match up with anything that's done in real life. You recognise this picture from earlier in the lesson, the railway line that was almost washed away by the sea. Well, once they'd done some repairs, they built what we call a sea wall in front of it, and it's literally that, a wall that stops the sea getting to the railway line or the town or whatever else you want to protect with it. So that's what's called a sea wall. Well done if you thought of something like that. In this picture we can see something called beach nourishment, and basically what they do is add lots of sand to the beach. It sounds kind of silly, but it's that simple. You add lots and lots of sand to the beach because the beach is actually a really good natural barrier to coastal erosion. It provides a really good shock absorber of the waves. The waves pour all their energy into the beach, and sometimes it can take a long time for the waves to take that beach away and to erode it. So those are just 2 of the ways in which we can protect the coast from coastal erosion. Now there are lots of other different possible ways of doing it, and we're going to spend, as I say, next lesson looking at the ways in which we prevent coastal erosion. If you'd like to find out a bit more about managing coastal erosion before next lesson, you can watch the video that's in the description here. It'll give you a really good insight into how decisions are made and what things can be done to prevent coastal erosion. Remember, if you didn't quite understand a bit or you missed a bit, you can always go back to the start or to wherever you need to in today's lesson and see that again and play it again. That's not a problem. Hope you found today's lesson really enjoyable and really useful. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll speak to you again soon.